Good evening, and welcome to the Durham District School Board meeting of Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order, acknowledging that the Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live Miigwech. I'd like to call on Trustee Michelle Arsenault to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Chair. Please join me in welcoming Willow Walk Public School Junior and Intermediate Choir. Choir members are in grade 4 to 8. They are accompanied by Amy Borden, Andrea James, Bill Holden, Andrew Watson, Principal Sandra Marcres, and Vice Principal Mike Locavo are all in attendance this evening. We extend a warm welcome to all of you. In addition to O Canada, the R&B choir will be singing Lift Every Voice. If you are able to, please stand for O Canada.
call a 5-minute recess. Good evening, everyone. This is a very special evening at the Durham District School Board as we celebrate the Definitely Durham Class of 2023 Hall of Fame, where we will honor and recognize former students of our board who have excelled in a variety of fields. Please join with me in welcoming our special guests and inductees, Stacy Jiggins, Matthew Samuels, the family members present on behalf of William Levine, and everyone present supporting the inductees. At the Durham District School Board, excellence is defined and celebrated in many ways through graduation, through participation, and through the leadership in our students, as our students demonstrate each and every day. As a community of leaders and learners, it is important that we take the time to acknowledge and celebrate excellence within the board. The 3 new inductees into the Definitely Durham Hall of Fame exemplify the DDSB's character traits of teamwork, responsibility, respect, perseverance, optimism, kindness, integrity, honesty, empathy, and courage. That speaks volumes. They're positive role models for our students and our entire school community. These 3 individuals have achieved outstanding success in realizing their goals and are from all parts of the Durham region. We are extremely pleased and proud to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of 3 extraordinary individuals who have lived and learned within the walls of our great schools. We are proud to say that they are definitely Durham. This brings me to the time we have all been waiting for to celebrate inspiration and excellence as we induct our honorees into our very own Hall of Fame, Definitely Durham. I'd like to call on Trustee Carolyn Morton.
Thank you. I am Carolyn Morton, and I am the trustee representing the North. I have the distinct honor of celebrating our first inductee, Stacy Jiggins. Please watch this presentation with me, highlighting Stacy's career and Stacy's accomplishments. Welcome.
Stacy Jiggins, née Gordon, led a successful career as a professional volleyball player on both the Canadian national and junior national women's volleyball teams. A DDSB graduate, Stacy attended Eastdale CVI in Oshawa, where she played basketball, volleyball, soccer, and baseball before her acceptance to Ohio State University on a full athletic scholarship where she focused on her volleyball career. In addition to several awards and records, Stacy was inducted into the Ohio State Hall of Fame in 2010 and later to the Oshawa Sports Hall of Fame in 2017. Her professional career lasted 10 seasons until 2013, when she retired to start a family and a career in law enforcement. Today, Stacy lives in Durham Region and is a respected member of the Toronto Police Service and Durham Regional Police Service.
Please join me in congratulating Stacy on her induction into the Definitely Durham Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Good. No, not yet. Okay.
Test. Thanks again. I really didn't have anything prepared. However, there's lots of thanks to give. I have my friends, my family, some teammates, and my children, Bo and Scotty. They're here today. As you heard earlier, obviously I retired back in 2013 to start a family, and lo and behold, they're here to see Mom get an award, so that's pretty cool. So thanks for being here, guys. Thanks to, I want to congratulate first and foremost Bill and Matthew. This is a great honor that will forever be, attached from the 2023 Hall of Fame for Durham. So congrats to you guys for that. Thanks to my parents. It's nice that you guys can be here. And from my early elementary days all through high school and to Ohio State, you guys traveled almost every chance you could get to all the home games in Columbus, Ohio, and that's not an easy drive. So thanks for all the support over the years, and you still continue to support myself, and now my kids are in hockey and every kind of sport that we could possibly put them in. My parents are there to kind of see it come full circle, so thanks again. My husband's here. He was a volleyball player back in the day, so it's nice that we have that connection, and my teammate Ann, we played at Ohio State together, and I was a freshman when Ann was a senior, so I lucked out not only getting to meet her, play with her, but it was cut short because obviously I would have loved to have played all 4 years with you. But at the same rate, here we are. We both live in Durham. We have our kids, they can hang out, and we can kind of see our life from the way it's become since being at Ohio State. I haven't played for probably over 11 years, and I miss it every day. Obviously, I made my decision to retire for kids for the reason why I wanted to be able to sit cross-legged, play Lego, play all those fun games, and when my little guy wants to play catch, Mommy's willing and able to do it. When my little girl wants to go out there and shoot some pucks and what have you, I'm ready to do it. So no regrets in that regard, but it's the athlete in me. It's player's mentality that I'll always remember where I came from. I'll always remember who I am. But I look forward to seeing my little guys grow up. As much passion as I had as an athlete in playing the game of volleyball, it's the same passion I have as being a mom. So thanks, guys, for that. I'm going to get off here now and let the other inductees have their moment. But thanks again to everybody, and it's a huge honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, and congratulations once again. My name is Stephen Linton, and I am one of the trustees for Pickering. I now have the distinct pleasure and honor of introducing the video presentation for our next inductee, Matthew Samuels, highlighting his career and contributions.
When I first found out I got nominated for 6 Grammys, I just finished dropping my daughter to school. I kind of pulled over, and because I was still driving at the time, I was like, yo, I was freaking out, man. It was crazy. I just didn't know what to say, because
Matthew Boy Wanda Samuels is a Grammy award-winning music producer from Ajax. Matthew attended Pickering High School, where he began producing music at 15. His talent was first showcased at the Battle of the Beatmakers, Canada's official producer competition. Today, he has partnered with professional artists including Eminem, Jay-Z, and most notably, his longtime friend, Drake. Matthew believes in helping youth and continues to support young musicians. Matthew visits Pickering High School often and each year presents the Matthew Samuels Music Award, accompanied with a bursary to a graduating student at Pickering High School. Still living in Durham region, Matthew now produces his music from home and is a proud father.
Please join me in congratulating Matthew Samuels on his induction into the Definitely Durham Hall of Fame.
Thank you, everybody. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, I also wasn't prepared, so kind of nervous, but I just want to thank God, thank my family, friends who always supported me. I want to thank Durham District School Board and all the great teachers like Miss Leaney, Miss Thomas, Mr. Ashley, all the teachers that really actually cared, like you guys really cared about the students and stuff that they cared about and them learning, so I appreciate you guys for that. And just everybody in general, for all the motivation always. And also just to touch on, the great job you guys been doing at Durham District as well. Thank you guys dearly for that. I would love to talk to and look into, expanding on the music curriculum and even other stuff, modernize it, keep these kids interested. They make music digitally these days, and we want to keep kids interested and kids engaged. So that's like a lot on my focus these days, and I would love to create something and build and continue to, keep the kids interested, and let them keep going. So thank you guys for everything. I don't know if I missed anything else to say, but appreciate it, and thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew, and congratulations. My name is Candace Thompson, and I'm Superintendent of Education. I now have the distinct pleasure and honor of introducing our next inductee, William, or as we knew him, Bill Levine. Please join me in watching this presentation highlighting Bill's career and contributions.
G'day, Abby. It's Bill Levine from Ontario. A nice snowy night, a busy day of shoveling snow.
William Levine Bill's 37-year career as an educator began as a teacher in 1979 at Harwood Secondary School and ended in 2016 as the principal of Eastdale CVI. His optimism, expertise, support, and dedication to his students, staff, and the community have been invaluable assets to Durham Region and across Ontario. Bill spent his years in school immersed in team sports and clubs. He had a passion for athletics, even being drafted by the Hamilton Tiger Cats in 1978, and went on to coach many sports. Throughout his career, Bill was the recipient of many awards, including being appointed to the Order of Ontario for his significant contributions to amateur sports and fitness. As an educator, he was known for going above and beyond and headed redesigns of the library, technology classrooms, and sports facilities during his time as an administrator at Eastdale CVI. As he battled cancer in his final years, Bill worked with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada. In honor of Bill's contributions to the DDSB as an educator, the Levine family has established the William Shepard Levine Memorial Bursary Fund, which will be awarded to a graduating student to continue Bill's legacy of supporting student well-being and education.
Please join me in congratulating William Levine on his induction into the Definitely Durham Hall of Fame. I would now like to invite Bill's daughter, Victoria, to accept his award and provide a few remarks on behalf of her father.
So I did prepare something. I'd like to start by saying thank you to Valerie Koleski for nominating my father for this award. Thank you to the Durham District School Board for recognizing my father's contributions to serving this community and inducting him as one of the recipients of the Definitely Durham Award this year. To the other recipients honored this evening, congratulations, and thank you for everything you've done to serve and support this community. I've spent the last few weeks thinking about what my dad would say if he was standing up here today. And while cleaning up the home office this weekend, I came across a piece of paper written by my father containing his mantras for being an effective educator and exemplary principal. And as I read over the page, I smiled and said to myself, what better thing to share than his own words? And I quote, "When I was a principal, I used a few mantras to guide my decisions and help staff and students stay safe, healthy, and be successful. 1, family first. At the end of the day, this is what matters most. 2, treat students how you would like your children to be treated. Parents trust us with their most prized possession. 3, everyone deserves another second chance. Our mission in life is to help children attain the best possible futures. 4, 6 degrees of separation. Treat each other with compassion, respect, dignity, and equity. You never know who could be your future boss, future daughter or son-in-law, or your electrician, nurse, or neighbor. Win-win. Find solutions to problems where everyone is a winner. A win at the expense of another person is only a solution for you. 6, the self-fulfilling prophecy. Believe that anything is possible and take every opportunity to empower and support people to develop high expectations and achieve their goals. And finally, 7, kill them with kindness. Years of experience working with the hardest to serve students from the most difficult backgrounds has convinced me that the best way to help students overcome challenges and move forward on a positive pathway is to respond to behavior that is oppositional and destructive with kindness and compassion. Thus, when you combine empowering educators with the love and support of family and community, our students can and will achieve greatness. On behalf of my family and I, thank you again for recognizing my father for this award.
Thank you, Victoria, and thank you to all of our inductees for their warm thoughts and their reflections on this very auspicious moment. And certainly, this is not just a recognition of you, but in your thanks, you've been able to recognize and reflect that it is a team that has, in fact, created the path. And that's a message for our young people, the young folks who are a part of our student and school communities today, is that you are wrapped around. And when you are wrapped around by your families, by your communities, by your classmates, by your teachers, your educators, your school leaders, you know that the path ahead for you is bright and filled with potential, as embodied in the 3 people who were recognized today coming right out of here in Durham. So another round of applause to our inductees. I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to the screen to view the plaques that will be prominently featured on the Wall of Fame in the atrium just outside of the boardroom. It's on the wall out there. The plaques are sitting here, but you can't really see them, so we've decided to put them up on the screen for you so that you would be able to see what they will look like. The Wall of Fame holds tributes to all of our inductees and offers a reminder to everyone who passes by the possibilities for success in which we all share. To this year's inductees, we say thank you for raising the bar high and for providing us with examples and reminders of our collective goal that Durham District School Board students can and will meet with great future success. We pay tribute to you as outstanding role models and for our students of today and into the future. Thank you to the individuals who took the time to nominate someone to the Hall of Fame. And you presented the selection committee with a very difficult and unenviable task of selecting from the many nominations that we received. But again, 3 rows above, they are here with us tonight with family. And so once again, in closing, please register our congratulations to them with your applause. Thank you.
Let's continue with our meeting. Are there any declarations of interest at this time? Seeing none, there are no declarations of interest at this time. Are there any errors or omissions on the agenda? I'm seeing none. Could I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as distributed? Trustee Edwards, seconder. Trustee Arsenault. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. May I have one motion to receive the approved minutes of December 4th, 23, regular board meeting, and to approve the draft minutes of January 22nd, 2024 board meeting. May I have a mover? Trustee Morton, seconder. Trustee Cunningham. All in favor? That carries. Trustee Cameron, Trustee Cameron?
Thank you, Chair. I just have one amendment to the minutes on page 15 to motion RB 13 on the naming of Ontario Street Public School. I believe I voted no on that motion.
You have a change. Is there an error on page 15?
Yes, I should be marked no.
Okay, thank you, Ben. We'll make sure that that change takes place. I'd like to call on Director Camille Williams-Taylor for the information update.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. On February the 8th, the Durham District School Board was pleased to host the Ministry of Education's announcement of incorporating Black Canadian history into the grades 7, 8, and 10 curriculum. That starting in September 2025 will emphasize the significant contributions and history of Black Canadians, integrating it into the broader narrative of Canadian history. As noted in that announcement, teaching Black history ends the practice of telling a single story about our country and is an important step in fostering a more inclusive and equitable education system and society. The announcement reminds us of our commitment to recognizing Black excellence and addressing anti-Black racism year-round. We encourage all community members and organizations to reflect and take meaningful steps to identify and dismantle anti-Black racism throughout the year, and have posted more on this topic on our website at ddsb.ca. The ministry also announced that they have created the Ontario Curriculum Review and Revision Guide, where the ministry will be phasing in a 5-year review cycle of the Ontario curriculum. Next week, athletes with an intellectual disability from across Canada's 12 provincial territorial Special Olympics chapters will convene in Calgary to compete in the Special Olympics Canada Winter Games, with the goal of achieving personal bests and, in some cases, the opportunity to be named to the Special Olympics Team Canada. Athletes will compete in 8 different sports, including speed skating, alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, figure skating, curling, floor hockey, snowshoeing, and 5-pin bowling. The DDSB's Ella Robinson-Renaud, who attends J. Clark Richardson, will be representing Ontario in speed skating. Please join me in wishing Ella the very best of luck as she competes. Thank you, Chair, and that concludes my updates for this evening.
Are there any questions for the Director? And seeing none, we'll move on to public question period. We are now on item 9, public question period. Each question being asked this evening will be displayed on screen, along with its response from staff. Questioners are reminded to ask only their approved question. We have allocated up to 30 minutes for public question period, and a timer will be visible for all participants. All approved questions, along with their corresponding answers from staff, will be posted on the Durham District School Board website following this meeting. All questions submitted for public question period will be shared with trustees following the meeting. I would first like to invite Dylan Reynolds to ask a question virtually, which will then be responded to by Associate Director David Wright.
Good evening, everybody. My question tonight is about the bus driver shortage. Over the past several years, starting around 2012, we started to have some issues with school bus delays due to the bus driver shortage. I wonder, what are the plans in place if a school bus is delayed or doesn't show up at all, or if there is no driver to cover the route? That's all my questions I have for now.
Thank you, Dylan, for the question. Nice to see you. Good evening. You are correct. There is a provincial shortage of bus drivers. However, so far this year, DDSB has done really well. The efforts that have been made by DDSB and DSTS when adjusting bell times and being as efficient as possible when routing students have resulted in very few cancellations this year. DSTS runs an average of 500 buses a day and have operated for just over 100 days so far this year. That makes almost 52,000 trips they've made this year, and we have had only 7 cancellations. Cancellations are an infrequent reality, and they only happen after every other option or alternative has been considered and are a last result. DSTS is adopting new technology called M-Transport that will enhance communications with parents with respect to delays and route cancellations. Notification of cancellation is provided as early as possible in the day and is generally sent out to families by 6:30 a.m. Recruitment and retention efforts continue year-long with school bus operators to ensure as many drivers as possible are supporting student transportation.
All right, guys, I will see you guys on March 18, 2024. Bye.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Bye for now. I would now like to invite Amjad Mohammed to ask a question virtually, which will be responded to by Associate Director David Wright. Amjad?
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Madam Chair and respected board. My name is Amjad Mohammed. I'm living in Pickering since 2012. I'm a father of 3 kids. Once we moved into Pickering and builder, we were looking for a home. The builder had a sign saying proposed school. So since 2011 and 2012, we moved in. 2013, we came, I did came into the school as a delegate regarding elementary school. After all these years, 2020, it was announced a school being built in Creekwood community, which is on Tilling Road and Darshan Street. All these years, we had all these hopes, our kids going through different schools all over in Pickering with overcrowded buses and lining up in the rain, no bus shelters, buses being canceled, every snowstorm hits. As you guys know, through pandemic and even after now inflation, every time school bus canceled, one parent has to stay home and time off from work, which is causing undue hardship on the family. We've been waiting patiently all these years for this elementary school come in Pickering, which is Creekwood area. City of Pickering spent $3.8 million cleaning up that site. Ministry of Environment did few assessment. It did not, because of salt contamination, the site did not pass through. But lately, the site, as of us, we find out, we went and talked to the city, they said the site is clean, it's just the process of getting reassessed. We did approach Ministry of Environment and Minister of Finance. They are aware of this issues going on. So now Ministry is saying they can cut down that time period, which was 14 weeks for assessment, which we're looking for school in next year. So as the site is clean and the space is there, and we've been waiting all these years, this was the first school, English school was being built in Pickering, which is moving, now is moving to Ajax. Ajax school, it's good for residents of Ajax. That school would not serve the residents of Pickering, which is 2.5 kilometers away from this site. All around, the kids will be facing same issue with the cancellation of school buses, cancellation overcrowded school buses. Even the Roslyn Road, which leads to that school, the proposed site, which is not even I mean, there's no process and there's no guarantee that site, the school will be built in September 2025. Why don't we stick to the plan A? Since the site is completed, this site was also, there was supposed to be a park and daycare center was coming. So we did approach the Ministry of Education. They're saying the funding is there for the school in Pickering and the daycare center and the park. Moving this school to Ajax would not help the residents of Pickering. As you know, kids wants to walk to school. There's hundreds, not thousands of homes around this site. There's no inch left around this site, which is, there's no home. So all these parents been suffering. We've been waiting over 13 years for this school. Now this school is moving to Ajax. It's giving us a lot of strain. We did start a petition, and as you can see, I did send that petition to one of my respected trustees. You will see it's almost, we have 300 parents are saying no to school in Ajax. Please kindly reverse that decision and stick to the plan A, which was the Creekwood Pickering Elementary School. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Amjad.
Thanks very much. Do appreciate your sentiments. Unfortunately, despite the best efforts of all parties, there is no guarantee of when the site at Tillings Road and Dursam Street will be ready for purchase. DDSB received capital approval to build the school in 2020, and due to complications associated with purchasing the property in Pickering, the opening of the school has been pushed back multiple times. Continuing to wait out a process that is outside of our sphere of influence will inevitably cause further delays. In addition to growth in the Pickering Creekwood area, DDSB is experiencing enrollment growth and pressures in other areas as well. Building on the Ajax Coughlin site, already owned by DDSB, will ensure no further delays as we work towards a September 2025 opening. The new school will be closer than both Valley View Public School and Valley Farm Public School, where students in the Creekwood neighborhood currently attend. DDSB is still interested in purchasing the Pickering Creekwood site from the City of Pickering for a future school, and we will continue to work collaboratively with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would now like to ask Executive Lead Robert Serjanik to read the questions submitted by Sue Fan. Rob?
Thank you, through you, Chair Thatcher. This is the question from Sue Fan. We all know that fighting racism is important in the DDSB community. We are funding and promoting anti-Black racism more and more as a matter of public interest and to provide a diverse range of responses. Please have as many people as possible name the specific law or policy that they believe is the strongest example of racism experienced by Black students in the DDSB. The question put to them is about anti-Black racism facing DDSB students in the 2023-24 academic year. Specific law or policy cited must impact Black students in 2023-24 in Durham schools. Please do not reference any other countries or time periods in the specific policy or law that they mention when citing a specific example of anti-Black racism in the DDSB in 2023-24. If only one person answers, please provide the rationale on public record. That again is the question from Sue Fan, and I'll turn it over to Associate Director Wright to respond.
Thanks, Robert. The questioner this evening is asking that we attribute anti-Black racism to a single policy or a single law that directly targets Black students in DDSB schools and to justify the necessity of our ongoing efforts to address anti-Black racism. We reject the premise of this question. The premise is flawed because it does not consider how systemic and structural anti-Black racism operates across the education sector and in other sectors, including but not limited to health, welfare, policing, and the justice system, and how they collectively contribute to anti-Black racism for Black students, families, staff, and community members. The premise requires Black communities to continue to explain their experiences and for these experiences to be heard and addressed by the very systems that harm them. Anti-Black racism impacting DDSB students is not a one-to-one equation. Instead, it is a compilation of experiences that have racist impacts. It is the impact of laws, rules, policies, established social cultures and codes that result in marginalization, exclusion, silencing, and discrimination. The premise of the question erases Black people's experiences. It also minimizes or ignores decades of research and studies about how policies and laws have negatively and disproportionately impacted Black students in the education system. Under the Human Rights Code, which has primacy over other provincial legislation in Ontario, we have responsibilities to address all forms of discrimination and racism in DDSB schools and workplaces, including anti-Black racism. The code recognizes that special programs, initiatives, or measures may need to be put in place to help correct and address historical and ongoing discrimination, disadvantage, and disproportionate impacts. Anti-Black racism is well recognized in legal decisions in Ontario and Canada. In 1993, the Ontario Court of Appeal, R versus Park, stated, "Racism, and in particular anti-Black racism, is part of our community's psyche, and that our institutions reflect and perpetuate negative stereotypes. These elements combine to infect our society as whole with evils of racism. Black people are among the primary victims of that evil." This finding was referenced again in other legal decisions since then and was also endorsed by the Supreme Court of Canada in 2005. More recently, in 2022, an adjudicator referenced this decision and stated that anti-Black racism was and is an ugly ingrained part of our society, and that racial discrimination is a societal problem that has infected all elements of our community. It is a collective problem that requires collective action to eradicate. The Ontario Human Rights Commission acknowledges the reality and pervasive nature of anti-Black racism in Ontario. The OHRC's in the OHRC's Tackling Anti-Black Racism and Education initiative, the OHRC states that it recognizes the struggles stemming from systemic anti-Black racism in education, which impedes and stifles progress for many Black communities across Ontario for generations. The recent rise and increased visibility of anti-Black racism in Ontario has sparked and renewed persistent calls to combat these issues. The OHRC further notes, systemic anti-Black racism in Ontario's publicly funded education system is a crisis. 30-plus years of reports, studies, and grassroots work has proved that anti-Black racism exists in education. The OHRC has studied, investigated, and litigated matters involving systemic anti-Black racism in education for decades, and recent studies show the problems still exist. It is deeply embedded in our institutions, policies, and practices, including the education system. As part of the OHRC's review of research and studies, the OHRC summarized themes related to anti-Black racism affecting students in K-12 education. Some examples are: Black students face disproportionately high rates of suspensions, expulsions, and lower academic achievement compared to their non-Black peers. The underrepresentation of Black educators and staff in schools hinders positive role modeling and perpetuates stereotypes. The current curriculum often lacks diverse perspectives and the contributions of Black Canadians, leading to a limited understanding of Black history, culture, and achievements. Discriminatory practices disproportionately impact Black students and limit their opportunities for success. The need for clear mechanisms to monitor progress, ensure transparency, and hold educational institutions accountable for implementing anti-racism initiatives. In addition, Ontario's Anti-Racism Act states that systemic racism is a persistent reality in Ontario, preventing many from fully participating in society and denying them equal rights, freedoms, respect, and dignity. Systemic racism is experienced in different ways by different racialized groups and reflect histories of systemic exclusion, displacement, and marginalization. Elimination supports the social, economic, and cultural development of society as a whole, and everyone benefits when individuals and communities are no longer marginalized. Systemic racism is often caused by policies, practices, and procedures that appear neutral, but have the effect of disadvantaging racialized groups. It can be perpetuated by a failure to identify and monitor racial disparities and inequities, and to take remedial action. Requires us to collect and analyze both qualitative and quantitative data based on race and other protected grounds of discrimination. Where data analysis show racial disparities or disproportionate experience or outcome or that reinforce systemic racial inequalities, then that may be one indicator that the policy or legislation may disadvantage a group or groups based on race. Our most recent analysis of DDSB data shows disparities and disproportionate effects for outcomes for Black students and other groups of students in such areas as discipline, academic achievement, graduation rates, and school climate and experiences. Much of this data has been reported at various board meetings and/or is publicly available on our DDSB website. Specifically, analysis of our first census shows that students who identify as Black were among the lowest outcomes. For example, Black students experienced suspensions at twice the rate of other students, and academic achievement was around 10 percentage points lower than the board outcomes for elementary literacy and numeracy and grade 12 college and university. Board outcomes for elementary literacy and numeracy and grade 12 college and university English and math. Our analysis has found that Black students had comparatively lower graduation rates and confirmations at universities in Ontario. Analysis of our second census is currently underway, and preliminary analysis indicate that these differences persist. The Human Rights Code, Anti-Racism Act, and bodies of research require us to address educational disparities and disproportionalities for Black students. We have legal and ethical responsibilities to continue to do the work to support learning and well-being for Black students and staff, and to actively address anti-Black racism in DDSB schools and workplaces. Back to the question, based on the evidence and data, we reject this and any attempt to erase the experiences of Black people. We also reject the attempt to deny the existence or reality of anti-Black racism. As stated in the 1994 Royal Commission on Learning, Love of Learning, in other words, we can expect that in a truly equitable system, roughly the same proportions of each community will excel, do satisfactorily, or do poorly, as in the total student population. If, as is currently true, they do not, the system needs to be fixed. We will continue to do the work necessary to support proportional outcomes for all students.
Thank you, A.D. Wright. I'd now like to ask Executive Lead Robert Serjanik to read the questions submitted by Jacqueline Van Eerden.
Thank you. The question is, why were parents not given any prior information about the new M-Transport that was started on the school buses, or even asked if we consented to our children to be given a QR card, and what happens if I don't wish for my children to have or use a QR card? I'll turn that over to Associate Director Wright to respond.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. DSTS piloted M-Transport at the end of last school year, and information about the program has been posted on the DSTS website since spring 2023. This school year has seen a phased roll-in of the M-Transport program. The program is now fully operational in Whitby and has recently been rolled out in Oshawa. Before M-Transport was rolled out in each area and students received their QR code cards, a school messenger notification was sent to all bus rider families providing requisite information. The M-Transport technology is linked directly to DSTS's routing software and enhances safety features within transportation, including attendance on the school bus, ensuring students are deboarding at the proper stop, and providing more accurate delay information. There is no way to remove a student from the transportation routing systems without removing them from transportation, and students will be required to board and deboard with their QR code. If parents have concerns about students' names appearing on the QR code card, a new card with no identifying information can be provided. DSTS may be contacted directly for more information about the system via their website or by contacting concerns@ddsb.on.ca.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Executive Lead Robert Serjanik to read the questions submitted by Kimberly Armstrong.
Thank you. The question is that we've been advised that DDSB at Home will not be offered to grades K to 3 for the 2024-25 school year because of declining registration. Parents currently in K to 2 virtual were not surveyed regarding intentions for the upcoming school year. Why didn't the DDSB survey the parents as an opportunity to review and consider true demand? Would DDSB consider accommodating current virtual grade 2s as grade 3 students or grade 3-4 split classes for the 24-25 school year? Should the DDSB decide to continue virtual learning in 25-26 for grade 4, this would eliminate the disruption of sending students back to in-person for 1 year of grade 3, then back to virtual for grade 4. I'll turn that over to Superintendent Davis to respond.
Thank you for the question. As a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the DDSB made a decision to implement full-time synchronous online learning for students. This has always been intended to be a temporary response. As time went on, enrollment has reduced as students have transitioned back to in-person learning. The reality based on declining enrollment trends in DDSB at Home is that we're not able to make it viable for all grades continuing into the 2024-2025 school year. Consulting with families for interest via survey around whether DDSB at home in all grades can continue to operate would provide a false impression that the program is viable and can continue as it does at present. We've still been able to make a reduced grade level DDSB at home opportunity available as a transitional pilot for the 2024-2025 school year, and we continue to review viability each year.
Thank you. I would now like to ask Executive Lead Robert Surjanic to read the questions submitted by Alicia McCauley Ashfield.
Thank you. The first part of this question submitted was covered by the previous question. I will read it out, though. The board has cited decreasing enrollment as the primary reason for removing the option of virtual learning through DDSB at home for K-3 in the 24-25 school year. Current enrollment data suggests that the DDSB at home elementary campus has a higher student population than some brick and mortar schools in the district. Can you elaborate on what enrollment numbers would be needed to maintain a full K-8 virtual campus, and why parents of students currently enrolled in K-2 were not surveyed to determine enrollment projections for 24-25 before the decision to remove virtual K-3 was made? The second part here is also, as virtual learning was first introduced as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, can you speak to specific measures the board is taking in brick and mortar schools to protect student health and safety, given that the COVID-19 pandemic is still ongoing? I'll turn that over to Associate Director Markowski to respond to that second piece in relation to the health and safety measures.
Thank you. So we continue to encourage all students and staff to self-assess for symptoms of illness and follow the recommended actions by the Durham Region Health Department and through the Ontario Self-Assessment Screening Tool. We do have a process in place that requires school administrators to report to the Durham Region Health Department increased illness absences, which are approximately 30% above the baseline. Upon notification to the Durham Region Health Department, an assessment would take place and additional infection prevention and control measures would be initiated. These actions may include communication to families to inform them of an increase of illness, additional cleaning, and ongoing monitoring of absences. We also want to stress that we routinely engage in conversation with our local public health unit, DRHD, the Durham Region Health Department, and if there was a need to take additional measures, we would take their guidance accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Executive Lead Rob Surjanic to read the questions submitted by Jessica Street. Rob?
Thank you. The question is, we have a budget concern regarding the gallery attendance and security costs for meetings not scheduled by the board. Can you provide information on the average attendance of individuals at these meetings and the associated expenses for security and police presence? Additionally, I'd like to know which section of the budget these costs are allocated from. I'll respond to that question. The response is, regardless of the number of individuals in attendance, we've experienced firsthand that meetings can quickly devolve into an unsafe environment for members of the public, trustees, and staff. The DDSB has an obligation to provide a safe environment in all of our facilities and will continue to provide security to ensure that we're able to do so. The average cost of security at public meetings is approximately $1,000. Costs for security come out of an administrative budget not designated for schools.
Thank you, and back to you, Executive Lead Surjanic. The next question is submitted by Jessica Wilkins.
Thank you. This is the last question of the evening. The question is, DDSB parents are still wondering when the broken policies regarding book complaints will be addressed by the DDSB. After parents questioned this process at a board meeting last year, wrote emails to trustees, parents also put in complaints with their children's principals who refused to pass it on to the board. The responses from trustees confirm that some of the books are inappropriate, so why is this problem not being addressed? I'll turn that over to Associate Director Markowski to respond.
Thank you. So as part of the development of the DDSB Learning Materials Selection Policy and related procedure, the DDSB engaged in a jurisdictional scan of provincial best practices. Our current policy and procedure have been reviewed multiple times and provide a roadmap on how we respond when individuals express concerns around the selection of books and resources in DDSB schools. As noted in the question, the school principal does play an integral role in the process, and that is all outlined within the Learning Resource Selection Procedure, which can be found on the DDSB website. When items are referred to the board level, a committee consisting of representatives of students, parents, teachers, teacher librarians, administrators, and trustees is selected to review the resource in question. It's important to note that the resources are reviewed as a whole rather than scrutinizing individual passages or sections that may be taken out of context. We do not review resources or on multiple occasions unless there were new editions or versions of the book, and there was an expressed interest for us to do so. So I hope that captures the essence of the question. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public question period for tonight, and we'll move on now to the agenda item 10, which is the report from the Committee of the Whole in camera, and I'll call on Trustee Emma Cunningham.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, the Committee of the Whole met in closed session on February 20th, 2024, and discussed matters involving the disclosure of intimate, personal, or financial information in respect of a member of the board or committee, an employee or prospective employee of the board, or a pupil or their parent, or decisions in respect of negotiation with employees of the board. On behalf of the Vice Chair of Standing Committee, this is my report, and I move the following motion: that the board approve the actions and adopt any resolutions of the February 20th, 2024 Committee of the Whole closed session meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Looking for a seconder for that. Trustee Edwards, are there any questions? Trustee Stone?
Yes, thank you. Trustee Cunningham, are you saying you discussed all those things, or those are things that can be discussed?
Items on the agenda related to the sections identified.
So we have a motion that has been moved and seconded. Are there any additional questions? Trustee Stone?
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, are you saying all those things were on the agenda?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Chair, no. Some of those items were on the agenda and some were not. That is the statement around what the Education Act allows us to put into an in-camera meeting, and so it covers all of those possibilities, but no specifics are being given in terms of the agenda. So the answer to the question is not all of those items were discussed, but all of those items could have been discussed in an in-camera meeting.
Thank you, Director. So now, Trustee Stone, we're in board. There are, to discuss any motion, you have two opportunities. The first for 4 minutes, up to 4 minutes. The second up to 2 minutes.
So what are you saying to me?
So I'm saying that there are no more opportunities for you to discuss this motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to call now on Director Camille Williams-Taylor for the good news from the system. Director?
Thank you, Chair, and I will simply ask our tech team to press play, and we will hear from student voices and have an opportunity to view some of the very positive things happening in our district across the district.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of DDSB students and staff, we are happy to bring you good news from across the system.
The Innovation Education team is launching a project titled Dream, Design, Deliver, where students will use the design process and 3D printing to create solutions to accessibility barriers. Staff from Greenview School stopped by to talk to DDSB staff about using assistive switches as an access solution for students with mobility issues. Staff also engaged in hands-on activities building 3D printed switches. The switches were donated to Makers Making Change and will be used by Durham community members.
DDSB Facilities Services staff recently completed library renovations at Henry Street High School. the John Boyer Library Commons opened on the first day back to school for the start of the second semester. It's a beautiful new space designed for all Henry Street Hawks to enjoy while reading a good book or getting some work done.
Every February, our school across the district participates in Black History Month events and festivities that honor the legacy of Black people in Canada. This year's theme aspires to embrace new opportunities for the future. We had the pleasure of kicking off this month's festivities at the board office with many staff and students in attendance. We celebrate Ujamaa, meaning to build and maintain our communities together and make our communities' problems our problems and to solve them together.
Chinese New Year, also known as the Spring Festival or Lunar Festival, fell on February 10th. This year ushers in the Year of the Dragon, associated with good fortune, wisdom, and success. DDSB and Durham East Asian Educators in Education held its inaugural Lunar New Year event on February 13th. This event brought together hundreds from across the district to enjoy a live lion dance, authentic cultural cuisine, activities, and conversations based on cultural significance. Thank you to all who attended.
Throughout the month of January, many of our schools across the district highlight the many contributions that Tamil Canadians have made to the social, economic, and cultural fabric of our country. Tamil Heritage Month presents us with the opportunity to acknowledge and enjoy the narratives and wisdom of the Tamil culture.
Congratulations to Pine Ridge Secondary School health and physical education teacher and basketball coach Cameron Neckers on his induction to the Oshawa Sports Hall of Fame. Throughout his career, Cameron has won OFSAA Provincial Basketball Championships multiple times as both a player and a coach, and was among 5 winners chosen for 2024.
Sonia Cardoza, a newly hired occasional teacher at Southwood Park Public School, recently received a scholarship for excellence in teacher education. Principal David Budd says Sonia has been an incredible gift to the students, families, and community at the school. The Ontario College for Teachers Scholarship Program awards 4 1,500 scholarships to exemplary students enrolled in a teacher's education program in Ontario. Congratulations, Sonia.
DDSB students and staff have been reveling in a range of outdoor and indoor sports and activities. Inside the school, they've been dancing, taking it easy with yoga, and winning dodgeball and volleyball tournaments. Outside in the crisp winter air, they've been skiing and snowboarding on the slopes, snowshoeing, and playing road hockey.
Schools have been participating in charitable drives since the beginning of the school year. Students from J. Clark Richardson teamed up to help support the Special Olympics and Tim Hortons in their Special Olympics Donut Drive. Students support the initiative by promoting the campaign to raise awareness and funds, with 100% of the proceeds going to support the athletes. From February 5th to the 9th, R.S. McLaughlin students organized a Charity Love Box campaign to accept donations to support the children and their families as they battle cancer. Students and staff were successful at collecting 16 boxes of games, toys, fidget toys, art supplies, and more towards their campaign goal.
On January 24th, DDSB's mental health team highlighted their Let's Listen campaign, raising awareness to members of our school community to be aware of everyone's mental health. Harmony Heights grade 4-5 class posted positive messages throughout the school to support the campaign.
As you can see, the dates of significance take us to the next board meeting.
Thank you to Malrick and Kylie from Ajax High School for reading this month's good news.
Moving on to item 12 on the agenda under recommended actions, and I'll call on Trustee Emma Cunningham for the report and adoption of resolutions from the Standing Committee meeting of February 5th. Emma?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. In the absence of the Vice Chair this evening, I am bringing forward a motion regarding the minutes and resolutions of the February 5th, 2024 Standing Committee meeting. I move that the Board adopt the resolutions and approve the minutes of the February 5th, 2024 Standing Committee meeting.
Looking for a seconder for that motion. Trustee Arsenault. Are there any questions? Any comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? And seeing none, that motion carries. Moving on to the Education Finance Committee meeting. The dates here as presented by Associate Director David Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. It is officially that time of year again. The report starting on page 24 of your package highlights the process and timeline of the budget. Board staff are currently preparing enrollment projections for the coming 24-25 school year in preparation for the release of the Grants for Student Needs, which will allow us to calculate approximately what our revenues will look like for next year. From there, we will work with departments across the district and with input from stakeholders, including trustees, to prepare a budget in time to submit to the Ministry of Education. The timeline for that is the end of June. The budget will support the implementation of the board's recently approved strategic plan through operational initiatives. Section 3 of the report highlights a tentative schedule of meeting and consultation dates that closely resembles last year's schedule. Unfortunately, because the ministry has not yet indicated when we can expect the Grants for Student Needs to be released, the schedule may need to be adjusted over the coming months. There is a recommendation included in section 7 of the report in front of you this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, A.D. Wright. The recommendation can be found on page 27, and I'm looking for a trustee to put that motion forward. Trustee Edwards.
I actually had a question that will reflect the motion, so may I ask my question?
I'd like to table the motion, and then we'll certainly look at your
It just
question.
that it's around timing, and so
Okay.
it might be the change, it might affect the motion.
Understood. Go
Okay,
ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question about the first meeting for the public, which is scheduled for a 6 p.m. start. All the other public sessions are at a 7 p.m. start, and that's usually when we do have public sessions for their ability to come and because they have work and other schedules. So I'm just wondering why that one has a 6 p.m. start and not like a 6:30 or 7 p.m. start for most of the other public meetings.
Yeah, good point.
I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry, I don't know why it is scheduled for 6 and not later. I don't see a conflict in my calendar. I assume because that's really the only agenda on this meeting, it was a 6 p.m. start. But I'm sure, working with the Education Finance Chair, we could review and see if a later start date works or a later start time works.
Yes, Trustee Morton, can you help with that?
Thank you. Yes. And I would like to move that we approve the 2024-25 meeting schedule as outlined in Table 1 of this report for the Education Finance Committee.
Thank you. We can amend if you choose. We're looking for a seconder for that. Trustee Arsenault, is there any further discussion? Trustee Edwards.
Thank you. Moving the schedule as is means that we can't, that it's not changing the 6 p.m. start. So I have a concern with this 7 p.m. start. I would really appreciate. I realize it's the only item on the agenda is the deputizations, but the thing is we're talking about public consultation, so I would really like to amend that motion to approve the schedule except for a 7 p.m. start for the Thursday, April 4th meeting.
And I'm very much in agreement with that. We definitely want the public involved. And I'm very pleased that we are providing 2 opportunities for the public to make deputations. So yes, I'm in total agreement.
I'd just like to check with Council Cotter. Council Cotter, can we consider that a friendly amendment?
I'm sorry, Chair Thatcher, you may have to refresh my memory. I believe that the motion was already seconded.
Yes.
In which case it's a formal amendment. So I think the first order of business is to have debate and vote on
the amendment?
On the proposed amendment to change the time of that meeting to 7 p.m. And then if that motion carries, then you would then move back to the main motion
Okay, thank you. So at this point then, let's take a look at the amendment and have discussion and debate around that. I'll start with Trustee Cunningham.
Oh, shit.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I was actually pleased to see the meeting at 6 p.m. As someone who has had young children, where bedtime is frequently 7 or 7:30, I was pleased to see that there are two options for time available. One for people who may have to work later in the day, so they can come at 7 p.m., and one a little bit earlier in the day at 6 p.m. for people who may have to get home for an earlier bedtime for their children.
Interesting point. Student Trustee Cameron, I'm going to go to Trustee Linton and then I'll come back to you. Trustee Linton?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm just, again, if we're talking about dates and times, I'm also conscious that that is the holy month of Ramadan. And so there may be members of the community that would want to attend, but maybe partaking in iftar. So that may not give them an opportunity to, that would potentially give that community only a chance to attend one of the public deputations. So could we even potentially look at a date for the following week for the first deputation?
Trustee Linton, we're speaking to the proposed amendment from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock on that date.
So we're not, okay. I'm gonna say that all over again when it comes back, but sure, no worries.
Trustee Cameron?
Thank you, Chair. Could we see a motion or get it read back to us again? Could we see a motion or have it read back to us?
The amendment to the main motion is to change the time of that date from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thursday, April 4th. Public meeting. Trustee Linton?
Okay, so help me understand. So we're talking about amending the time. So we'd have to agree, just to get a little clarity, we'd have to agree on that and then potentially discuss the date.
Well, we're talking about just that the amendment has to do with the change in time. The date stays the same, but it's just a change in the time.
So then we'd have to come back and discuss the date in a second conversation.
Then we'll come back to the main motion.
Okay, let's do that.
He's looking at another amendment.
Chair Thatcher, I mean, if there's a trustee who wants to propose a different date, I think then we'd be looking at potentially another motion to amend the proposed schedule. But I'm not sure if that's the intention, but I think, as you say, we first deal with the time for the Thursday, April 4th, and then if Trustee Linton has a proposed amendment to the date, we would then deal with it then before returning to the main motion.
So first we'll deal with the amendment to the motion for the time change, and then we'll come back for your amendment. So is there any further discussion around the change of the time from 6 to 7 p.m.?
Just to clarify that we're only talking about the Thursday, April 4th, 2024, which is only a public meeting. There's no other opportunity, and we're looking at from changing it 6 to 7 for that meeting. Thank you.
So we have an amendment to the motion to change the time from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on March the Thursday, April 4th. Now, that was moved by you, Trustee Edwards. We need a seconder for that. Trustee Linton? Now, I'm going to ask you if you are in favor of that amendment, if you would hold up your green check mark. That motion carries. Trustee Linton.
So can I now move a motion to amend the date of the first public deputation from April the 4th to April the 11th?
Okay, we have an amendment to the amendment. I'm looking for a seconder for that, to change the date from Thursday, April 4th to April the 11th. Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Discussion?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering what the purpose of that amendment is.
I'll come back to you, Student Trustee Cameron, in just a moment. Could I have staff comment on the possibility of changing that date from the 4th to the 11th of April?
Through you, Madam Chair, we're just reviewing calendars to see if anything is scheduled that following week. On initial look at the outside of the trustee PD scheduled for Monday the 8th, I don't see anything. So I don't know why it couldn't be rescheduled either to April 10th or 11th, with appreciation for Trustee Linton for pointing out the conflict in the date.
Just further to that, just in reviewing dates and when Eid might be taking place, right now it looks like it's expected to fall on or near April the 9th. Theoretically, that could be maybe the 10th, the 11th, I'm not quite sure, to be honest, and I'm not sure we'd be able to provide a full response this evening about that, quite frankly. I think it's likely safe based on a very quick search online, but I think it's important, especially if we wanted to schedule something around a significant holiday for some members of our community. We'd really want to make sure, I think, we get that right.
Thank you for that, Executive Lead Sir Janik. So there may or may not be a conflict on that date. Trustee Stone?
Just a suggestion, why don't you vote on all the other dates, and board and staff can come back with a couple of options for the other day. And I'm not sure why you voted on the time when somebody wants to change the date, but anyway, let's go ahead. Maybe we can speed that up a little bit.
Councillor Cotter, I think that I'm understanding that the time will change from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and now we're discussing the date that will happen. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. You now have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded, so you're in the discussion phase of that. And if there are no more comments on that, I think you can call the vote. The motion that's on the floor is to move it to the 11th. So I think you're in a position to complete the discussion on that and call the vote on that.
So just a reminder, I believe Executive Lead Sir Janik was mentioning to us that there may be a conflict on the 11th, depending on how that comes down. So I just want to reinforce that.
Yes, Chair
I'll
Thatcher.
go to
just
Trustee
on that.
Linton. Go ahead, Trustee Linton.
Sorry. I'm comfortable with Executive Lead Sir Janik completing his thoughts and then maybe commenting after that.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So, although I believe it's unlikely, I think it is important that we consult, but one suggestion that the board may wish to consider is just moving it so that it's done just at the discretion then of the chair. I think you can say maybe the 11th at the discretion of the chair, and then that makes it the chair of the committee, and that makes it a little bit cleaner, and then wouldn't require us to come back to the board as well for the scheduling of I would say one date.
Chair Thatcher, if I might offer any assistance, I'm happy to help on this. So I think you have two options. First is to call the vote on the amendment to move the meeting to the 10th. Another option you could do is invite a further amendment, which would be to add to that motion, so to be to move the meeting to April 10th, subject to the discretion of the chair, who can assign another convenient date. So you could just you could invite that if somebody wants to move that, or it could be done as two separate motions. But I think either call the vote on this one, it gets voted down, we could have another one, or you could invite a further amendment to make it subject to the discretion of the chair.
So I'm going to call the question then on the amendment to move the date from April the 4th to April the 11th at the discretion of the chair. If you're in favor of this amendment, could you please raise your green check mark?
Well, just if I may, I think that was a little bit, and perhaps I've confused things, but I think it's one or the other. Call the vote on the amendment to move it to the 11th is option one. Option two would be to invite an amendment to make it, to add language at the discretion of the chair. So I think if you're calling the vote, it's just simply to amend the date to the 11th.
So I can continue then?
Yes, but I think I just wasn't clear in terms of if you're calling the vote, it's to move the meeting to the 11th.
Yes, I'll do that. So this is ridiculous. So I'm going to call the question to the amendment is to move the date from April the 4th to April the 11th at the discretion of the chair. If we need to come back and make a change to another date, we'll do so at a later time. So if you're in favor of that amendment, raise your green check mark, please. So that motion carries. So, back to the main motion. And we have a motion that is moved and seconded, that the Board of Trustees approve the 2024-25 meeting schedule as outlined in Table 1, the amended schedule. All in favor? Green check mark, please. Motion carries. So moving on to item C, this has to do with the unnamed North Oshawa Public School boundary recommendation, and I'll call on Associate Director David Wright, Head of Facility Services Lisa Bianca.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Thatcher. I'm here this evening to present the staff-recommended attendance boundary for the unnamed North Oshawa Public School, effective September 2024, for Board of Trustees approval. I'll be brief in my comments, as this report was discussed in a fulsome manner on February 5th. Since that time, we have not received additional feedback from the community. The permanent boundary being recommended is consistent with the holding boundary in place since 2015, whose students now attend 4 partner schools. There were no concerns or oppositions to the proposed boundary raised throughout the process. Please find the recommendation for consideration on page 38 of your package. And thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Just to keep in mind that we have held our debates in committee, and we have given consideration to the recommendation that is found on page 38 of your package. Looking for a trustee to put that forward. Trustee Cunningham? Seconder? Trustee Piniello? Trustee Stone? Question?
Thank you. Page 33, just have a question regarding the grade 7 students. When would they have to make that decision by, whether or not they're going to graduate at the school that they're at or go to the new school?
Could you speak closer to the mic, Trustee Stone, please?
Did you hear me, Lisa?
Yeah, I heard the question. Thank you. And through you, Chair. Following approval, assuming that the permanent boundary is approved by staff this evening, then the transition plan will go into effect. I don't have an exact date when they will have to decide, but given that staffing is in process now, it would have to take place prior to the establishment of the classes for 2024. So I'm assuming later on in the spring.
Thank you. I have another question for you. On page 36 at the bottom, so if the boundary change goes through, is it possible that some of the students will fall outside of the boundary change and therefore remain in the holding schools?
Thank you, through your chair. Any of the students that live within the holding boundary that was established and ongoing, all of those students will go into the new permanent boundary. There are students at those 4 partner schools that are in the home boundaries for those schools. For instance, Stephen Saywell, they will remain at Stephen Saywell, but nobody in the North Oshawa neighborhood, other than those grade 7s that elect to stay at their current school, would remain at the holding schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stone. I see no further questions, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, we have a motion that is moved and seconded to approve the recommended boundary for the unnamed North Oshawa Public School effective September 2024. All in favor? Motion carries. So back to you, Associate Director Wright and Head of Facilities Services, Lisa Bianca, for the Vincent Massey, Gordon B. Addersley, Pierre Elliott Trudeau boundary recommendation.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Thatcher. I'm here this evening to recommend to the Board of Trustees a revised enrollment boundary for Vincent Massey Public School, Gordon B. Addersley Public School, and Pierre Elliott Trudeau Public School to alleviate ongoing accommodation pressures effective September 2024. Again, I'll be somewhat brief in my comments as this report was discussed back on February 5th. Since that time, we have also not received any additional feedback from the community. If a change is not made to the current boundary, utilization at Vincent Massey Public School has the potential to reach or exceed 200% in the next 4 years. The site, although large, cannot accommodate all of the portables necessary for the required number of classes. Many scenarios and possible solutions were explored both before, during, and after the public consultation process. The proposed solution addresses enrollment and accommodation pressure, respects community concerns and inputs, and provides a path forward for a future capital priorities business case. There are 2 recommendations for consideration on page 72 of your package. Recommendation number 1 respects the changes to the Vincent Massey Public School boundary. Recommendation number 2 returns a small segment of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau boundary that has been holding at Gordon B. Addersley Public School since development to Pierre Elliott Trudeau effective for new registrations. We did not receive any feedback on this portion of the review. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. I just want to remind trustees that we have held our debates in committee in terms of the Vincent Massey review. It has been to committee twice. We have had 2 webinars, and in discussion with the parents in the gallery this evening, they're very pleased that their feedback is reflected in the recommendations on page 72. I'd like to just ask trustees if there is any objection to us dealing with those on an individual basis. And I'm seeing none. So I'm just going to ask that the first recommendation, which has to do with the Vincent Massey boundary, be put up on the screen. She has her hand up. Okay. I understand that Trustee Piniello has her hand up. Trustee Piniello, I'll just get this motion onto the floor, and then I'll come to you for your question. I'm looking for a mover. Oh, yes. Trustee Piniello, did you wish to move that motion?
I can as well, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder. Trustee Cunningham. Trustee Piniello, did you have a question as well?
I did, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask if we could do a recorded vote, and if you're splitting it up, that's fine. If we could just do a recorded vote for each one, that'd be great, thanks.
We certainly can. Trustee Stone?
Thank you. I have a few questions around the report. On page 65, now this really isn't quite pertaining to the boundary change, but I'm just wondering how the city determines and what is the criteria around childcare for the schools. It says that you're working in partnership with the region of Durham and for childcare spaces, and they are the ones who decide on this, depending on the population. So what's the criteria, and are they going to expedite this for us at the school?
Trustee Stone, the motion has to do with the boundary for Vincent Massey. I will permit the question, but just to remind you of that.
Thank you.
If you prefer, Lisa, I can send you an email on that.
Oh, I'm happy to give you a brief answer
Thank you.
if that would sort of help, since it's been read out. So certainly the region of Durham is responsible for childcare throughout our area. They have done a consolidated service plan for the area. We are one of, I believe, 6 providers, so other school boards and other organizations. The before and after program, which is what we're talking about, is sort of needs-based, but they also have to have spaces available to provide it. Our discussions with them have been positive, but until they know how many students and families are going to the new schools, they would have to base their decision at that time. Once the boundary review is, assuming it is approved, then we would be able to provide numbers to them, and they could complete their analysis to see if there is need at those locations or sufficient interest.
Because that was one of the problems with the boundary review, was that childcare at Gordon B. Addersley. I have another question, page 66. So Maxwell Heights is already over capacity. So how will this boundary review affect Maxwell Heights when these children start to graduate from the Vincent Massey and start to go to Maxwell Heights? It's not Vincent Massey, so it's Gordon B. Addersley.
So thank you, and through you, Chair. Certainly, staff will have to analyze what the population or what the enrollment impacts are as these students transition through the system, bearing in mind as well that the North Oshawa Secondary School will be coming online in 2026, which will also help to provide some relief to secondary enrollments in that area. That will necessitate another boundary review to determine where those students, will be, the area of students that will be attending the new high school. And yes, enrollment pressure, hopingly sort of in the short term rather than the long term. If there is insufficient space, staff will have to look at either transitioning students to Eastdale or another school, similarly like we have between RS McLaughlin and Eastdale for current students.
Thank you. So we have, you've had your two questions, Trustee Stone. Could I suggest that you send your questions through and we will be sure to respond to them? Thank you. We're following the bylaw, Trustee Stone. You're talking over me. We have a motion that has been moved and seconded with regards to the Vincent Massey boundary. Are there any further questions? And I'm seeing none. So if you're in favor of this motion, would you please raise your green check mark? Thank you. I wrote it down. A recorded vote. Jillian, over to you.
Through the chair, I'll now call the recorded vote for the first recommendation. Trustee Arsenault?
In favor.
Trustee Cunningham?
In favor.
Trustee Edwards?
In favor.
Trustee Linton?
In favor?
Trustee Morton?
In favor.
Trustee Panillo?
In favor.
Trustee Stone? Trustee Thatcher?
In favor.
I will now call the student trustee non-binding vote. Student trustee Cameron?
In favor.
And student trustee Hoare?
In favor.
Through the chair, we have 8 trustees in favor, 4 trustees absent, 2 student trustees in favor, and 1 student trustee absent.
Thank you. Moving on to the second recommendation, and it'll be up on the screen for you to see. This is to do with the Pierre Elliott Trudeau and the Gordon B. Addersley boundary review. Looking for someone to move that motion. Trustee Cunningham, seconder, Trustee Arsenault. Is there any discussion? And I'm seeing none. I'll call the vote. We have a motion that is up on the screen that is moved and seconded. I see no discussion. I'd like to have a recorded vote for this as well, please, when you're ready.
Through the chair, I'll now call the recorded vote on the second motion. Trustee Arsenault?
In favor.
Trustee Cunningham?
In favor.
Trustee Edwards? Trustee Linton? Trustee Morton? Trustee Panillo?
In favor.
Trustee Stone? Trustee Thatcher? And I will now call the student trustee non-binding vote. Student trustee Cameron?
In favor.
Thank you. And student trustee Hoare?
In favor.
Hello?
Thanks, Ben. Okay. Through the chair, we have 7 trustees in favor, 5 trustees absent, 2 student trustees in favor, and 1 student trustee absent.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda then to item 12E, and I'd like to call on Associate Director Jim Markowski to discuss the school year calendar for 2024-25. A.D. Markowski, I don't think your mic is working.
What's happening everywhere?
Mine's working.
Thank you, Steve. No, he just turns his own on.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Trustee Thatcher, I'm just going to start from the beginning, if that's okay. So the report begins on page 135 of your package. Regulation 304 of the Education Act requires school boards to annually submit proposed school year calendars to the Ministry of Education by March 1st for approval. and we are bringing forward this report this evening to seek trustee approval for the 2024-2025 school year calendars. Reg 304 of the Education Act also stipulates that we need to schedule 194 school days between September 1st and June 30th. Of those 194 days, 3 days must be designated as PA days and devoted to provincial education priorities. And we're permitted 4 further PA days for board designated activities. The remaining days are to be instructional days, with up to 10 days utilized as exam summative days at the secondary level. Prior to finalizing our recommendations, we engaged in an expanded consultation process to determine how to best meet the needs and preferences of our community. The details of this process are summarized within your report. The key findings of this undertaking resulted in some adjustments to the proposed calendars that I would like to walk you through. So during the consultation, the majority of respondents, 87%, were in favor of the proposed calendars. However, based on feedback that we received, some community members and groups requested that the DDSB explore placing some professional activity days on specific dates to remove some barriers for families who observe certain dates of religious significance. And this would align to some of the conversations that we had about a year ago here in relation to the school year calendar. So therefore, based on community input and within the limitations described above, 2 of the PA days that are placed to coincide with dates of religious significance. I want to actually walk the trustees through it just so you could see what the changes were that were made from the proposed calendars to the ones that are in front of you today for approval. If you take a look at page 142, I'll use the elementary regular calendar to walk you through. So on November 1st, which is the date that coincides with Diwali, you will notice that a PA day is placed on that day. It's a Friday. In the proposed calendars, that date was on October the 11th, so we simply moved the October 11th PA day on the proposed calendars to November the 1st. Again, relatively close together in terms of dates and wouldn't really interrupt kind of the operational flow of the learning that takes place throughout the year. And in a similar fashion, if you take a look at the PA day on March 31st, it coincides with Eid, which marks the end of Ramadan. It was originally placed on April the 11th, so we just moved it back to 2 weeks. Again, not much of an interruption, and that would coincide with Eid. I will note in the proposed calendars, one last change that I want to highlight to you. I just want to make sure we're fully transparent on this. On the secondary modified calendar, we had originally set their their mid-break in the fall for the week of October 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, and November 1st. But since we moved the PA day to November 1st, we just bumped the week to the November 4th to 8th, which was not really much of a significant change. But other than that, everything coincides with the proposed calendars that were shared with community and stakeholders during the proposed consultation process. So I want to note the following. As we are trying to decenter our practices, and we marked 2 of the PA days on November 1st and March 31st, it's important to note that these dates were selected for PA days in an effort to respond to community feedback. Because we have limited number of PA days to assign each year, we cannot place PA days on all dates of significance for DDSB communities. The placement of PA days on a date of religious significance for one faith or community should not be interpreted as privileging or disadvantaging one religious faith group over another. School year calendars are developed annually, shared for community feedback every year, and are each year assessed against the requirements and limitations set out above. And finally, as the school start dates vary from year to year, which in turn affects the teaching and learning schedule and cycle, we may not be able to consistently set PA days on the same dates each year, nor can we commit to annually placing PA days on the same or other specific dates of religious significance, which also change every year going forward. I just want to make sure that that was noted. As I mentioned previously, we recognize the importance of decentering dominant structures and the need to include diverse community dates of significance in all of our planning. Our recommendation reflects our commitment to that work. We've developed 4 calendars, again, for your review. There are regular calendars for elementary and secondary, as well as modified for both. And our proposed calendars have been developed in conjunction with the Durham Catholic District School Board in order to minimize transportation costs where it was possible to do so. Again, I'll refer you to pages 142 and 145 of your report to review the proposed calendars for approval. And I will turn it back over to you, Chair Thatcher.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yours is working.
Through you, I would like to move that the board accept the proposed 2024-2025 school year calendars.
And looking for a seconder, Trustee Arsenault. Is there any discussion? Trustee Edwards.
Just a question on the transportation. You said you did mention that you were you tried to coordinate calendars with the Durham Catholic, but at this point in time, are there differences, and are we going to incur some transportation costs?
Thank you, and through you, Chair Thatcher, the last update I got was that one of our PA days didn't coincide with theirs, the remaining did. So that will have a slight fee associated with it. Perhaps I shouldn't use the word slight. It's about $175,000. But again, in the best efforts to bring forward and consolidate all the variables that come together in creating the school year calendars, we felt that this was the best proposal to bring forward. Trustee Edwards.
Supplement? No. Trustee Pinillo.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just want to express gratitude for, I guess I'll start first with the student trustees who brought this from, I believe, Student Senate and conversations they were having last year, in encouraging us to be bold and brave and think differently about how we arrange school years. To all the staff that made it happen, and to the trustees who were open to, changing things up and not always going with how things have gone. I think this will hopefully have a positive impact with community, and they will feel like their dates of significance are worth our time, worth our consideration, and also are important to us as being part of a wider school community. So I just wanted to express gratitude and voice support for this adjusted school year calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. I so concur. I'm not seeing any further questions, so we have a motion that is moved and seconded to approve the proposed 2024-25 school year calendars. If you're in favor of that, raise your green check mark, please. Motion carries unanimously. So moving on to item 12F, just to note that student trustees may not move or second motions, but are entitled to suggest a motion be moved by a member of the Board of Trustees. This evening, student trustee Ben Cameron has requested that Trustee Pinillo support his motion around the Toronto Youth Cabinet, and I'll ask him to speak to that.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to first thank Trustee Pinello for putting this motion forward on my behalf. And I think this motion is, I would like to think, common sense and reflects discussions that have happened at our board and across the province. And I like to think that there's momentum across the province in favor of supporting a food program for all of our students, so that we can make sure that they have healthy brains in the classroom. So this motion would show our support for the Toronto Youth Cabinet's calls for such a program. Thank you.
Student Trustee Cameron, would you read your motion, please? And perhaps we can put it up on the screen as well.
Yes. Thank you. That the Board of Trustees endorse the Toronto Youth Cabinet's calls for a province-wide school breakfast and lunch program, and that the chair of the board write a letter to the Minister of Education and other relevant parties, including local MPPs and the Toronto Youth Cabinet, expressing the board's support for this program.
Trustee Panillo, are you moving that motion?
Yes, Chair, I am. Thank you.
Looking for a seconder for the motion. Trustee Arsenault. Is there any further discussion? Trustee Edwards.
Thank you. I fully support the motion, but I just wanted to bring attention of a letter that OPSPA had written, because there is they provided commentary on the federal government's consultation regarding a national school food policy. And basically they did support the federal government. So there might be some, even though we put this forward, we might want to also CC this letter to the federal government MPs for a push of that, is that there is supposed to be a support for a national school program. And basically they did say that of course it does improve access to nutritious food for students, allowing students to focus on learning, addressing food insecurity within the community and mental health challenges, promoting healthy habits are just some of the benefits for a national food program. But one of the things that they also suggested around the, supporting a policy program that to provide breakfast meals and snacks that have a minimum requirement, and that be present at every school. So ensuring that it is at every school, and it be accessible at no cost to students or their care provider, the school or the school board, and that they offer in a manner that is stigma-free, and that they support culturally appropriate local food producers as well. So those are some of the recommendations that were put forward in the letter from OPSPA to the federal government on the national food program. So just wanted to provide that information to the board in their consideration of this motion, and ensuring that the letter does basically get CC'd to the letter does contain some of those similar things identified in the OPSPA letter, but also CC'd to the ministers, the federal ministers. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards, for bringing that forward. We'll make sure that the federal government is copied on that letter. Trustee Cunningham.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I am also in support of this motion. I am thrilled to see that the DDSB has 91 breakfast programs in schools across the district. However, that is not 100% of schools. I am also pleased to see that IDLF has provided $50,000 towards supporting food insecurity in schools and in student homes. However, IDLF is a charity that relies on donations, as does the food bank, and we are seeing more and more people relying on food banks and charities to make up a large part of their daily nutrition. And I think that it's important for us to ask the government to have funding that is sustainable, that we can rely on 100% of the time. That's not going to fluctuate based on how much people are able to donate in any given year, particularly with the increasing inflation. So I would support any measure that would bring us to 100% of breakfast programs in schools and tackle food insecurity from a much larger perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. I'm going to go to Trustee Panillo, and then I'll come back to Trustee Linton. Trustee Panillo?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I also want to express my significant support of this and gratitude again to the Toronto Youth Cabinet for the work that they've been doing. It has not gone unnoticed. to student trustee Cameron for asking me if I would consider putting this forward, to which I enthusiastically agreed. Ironically, before becoming elected as a trustee, this was one of my top priorities to have discussed, simply because I've seen the impact it has in schools and also amongst peers. I think it's important that we echo the calls that are coming from different places and spaces in the same way to Trustee Edwards' point on the OPSPA letter and the federal government, and to Trustee Cunningham's point on addressing poverty. Certainly, we've seen a rise in the need, and I believe it's long overdue that we start thinking about how schools and places of community gathering become social safety net places where folks know that they can get what they need. I've had the opportunity to see how other countries do national food programs, including in Japan, and was incredibly touched and inspired by how much thought and skill building and knowledge goes into simply preparing and serving meals to school children. But I also think culturally there's such an important part of this for so many of us, where sharing a meal with someone is a huge part of not just community building, but relationship building. And so I think it's critically important to eradicate barriers and implement that social safety net so that every youth and child who has a right to an education also has a right to adequate food stability, certainly when they're within our buildings and our institutions. I apologize, my voice is less than ideal, but I did want to thank trustees for considering this. Thanks student trustee for bringing this forward, and the Toronto Youth Cabinet and everyone who is working towards the same goal in different places and spaces, because this is critically important. And I'll end my comments there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Panillo. Trustee Linton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Can we bring the motion back up? Yeah. So through you, Chair, and not to be pedantic, but I think just to bring it in line, and I'm not sure if it's an amendment, but the document calls for a free school breakfast and lunch program, and we're missing the word free up there, which may be important in terms of eliminating barriers in some of our communities. So.
Director, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, I do believe that because the motion says expressing the board's support for this program, that this program refers to the Toronto Youth Cabinet statement, and I believe that the Toronto Youth Cabinet statement says free. So when it says, our motion says this program, it's referring to all of the principles included in the Toronto Youth Cabinet statement.
Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm looking at the staff recommendations on page 150, and they are recommending that the board, the school lunch and breakfast programs, that's a great idea, but they are cautioning regarding the mental health staff concerns and comments from the TYC. I just need clarification. Is there a mental health component to that motion?
Did you wish to address that?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So this motion relates only to, there's kind of two parts to the TYC's calls, and this only reflects their calls on the food program, not the mental health aspect of their letter.
Could I ask him to repeat that, please?
this motion would only reflect our support for the food program part of the letter and not the mental health aspect of the letter.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Trustee Morton, and thank you, Ben, for that. So I'm seeing no further questions. So we have a motion then that has been moved and seconded around the Toronto Youth Cabinet, the food instability, the letter that is going to be copied to the federal government and everyone else we can think of. So if you're in favor of that, green check mark, please.
So sorry, Chair Thatcher.
And the motion carries. Trustee Pinello?
Hi, I was going to ask for a recorded vote, please. Sorry.
Can we go back and do it? We can. Okay, we think we can go back and do that.
Through the chair, I'll call the recorded vote. Trustee Arsenault?
In favor.
Trustee Cunningham?
In favor.
Trustee Edwards?
In favor.
Trustee Linton?
In favor.
Trustee Morton?
In favor?
Trustee Pinello?
In favor.
And Trustee Thatcher?
In favor.
And I will now call the student trustee non-binding vote. Student trustee Cameron?
In favor.
And student trustee Hoare?
In favor.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have 7 trustees in favor and 2 student trustees in favor, 5 trustees absent, and 1 student trustee absent.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to the information items, and I'll call on Trustee Edwards for the SEAC report of November the 9th.
Thank you. As noted, the minutes for the Special Education Committee report for November 9th of 2023 can be found in your package. I'd just like to highlight a couple of things from those minutes, and that staff did report around PPM 169 around student mental health and the 11 expectations that are basically that our DDSB mental health and well-being plan and our action plan do align with those mental health 11 expectations that is put out in PPM 169. And the Inclusive Services Support also provided sort of in their report an update on the clinical on psychological services, and they sent out a video of the roles of roles of ISS, Inclusive Student Service Psychological Service Team were. And we had a presentation from Adam Fitzpatrick from the Senior Manager of Therapeutic Recreational Ability Center. And they talked about the summer program that started up during the 2022, and that the DDSB were provided 2 educational assistants to support this program. And you can read further details in the report. I just wanted to note that at the last SEAC meeting, which was in January, we made a significant note around the fact that these minutes come 2 months behind board meetings. And so we are considering, one of the discussions we are having is moving the SEAC meeting so that it will fall maybe on the first week of the month, so that the minutes and discussions can happen more timely at the board table, and the input from SEAC can be brought forward and more timely to these meetings. And that's my report. Thank you.
We're looking for a seconder for the SEAC report. It's just information? Oh, I thought you moved, okay. And let's go then, do you have an OPSA report tonight?
No, I actually do not, because our next board meeting isn't until March 1st and 2nd. Thank you.
I'd like to draw your attention then to the briefing note correspondence in the correspondence section of your package, which has to do with response to a letter that we received from the Ajax counselor, one of the Ajax counselors. That letter was included in one of your earlier packages. I believe it was the last standing committee meeting. This thanks to Executive Lead Sir Janik for providing us with that briefing note. As there is no further business, I'll call this meeting adjourned.